In April 1945, the powerful Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels was living the most desperate hours of his life. He was sheltered in a bunker along with his family, Adolf Hitler, and all the high officials of the Third Reich. By then, the Allies had entered Berlin and, deep down, everyone was aware that the war had failed. The Führer committed suicide by shooting himself in the head and, after his death, Goebbels was affected by a deep depression. In any case, the minister was appointed chancellor and Germany was left in his hands, so he made a last effort to save the Nazi Empire from total destruction. He bet all his chips on a letter asking Russian General Vasily Zhukov for a ceasefire so he could negotiate Germany's surrender on more or less favorable terms. However, when the message reached him, Zhukov refused completely. On May 1st, Goebbels became convinced that there was no escape. When other officials insisted that he flee, the new chancellor was blunt: "The captain must never leave the ship, I will stay here." Both Goebbels and his wife, Magda, feared for their children's fate should the Russians catch them. They had heard stories of Soviet soldiers murdering and raping German women, and they were unwilling to let their children suffer such aberrations. That is why, in order to save them from this fate, they made a chilling decision. But, how was the Goebbels family made up and what was their daily life like? And this, we have to know, first of all, the career of the Minister of Propaganda. He was born in Germany, in 1897, in a poor family, and since he was young he stood out for his intelligence, his charisma, and his anti-Semitism. When Hitler appeared on the political scene, Goebbels felt an immediate attraction to him, and dedicated his life to gaining his trust. He achieved his goal and became known for his violent speeches, in which he promoted hatred of Jews, foreigners, and opponents of Nazism. When the Führer came to power, he rewarded his subordinate with the position of Germany's Minister of Propaganda. The ministry's goal was to control German cultural life and influence it to agree with Nazism, so it encouraged discrimination against Jews and censorship of books and newspapers that spoke ill of Hitler. As for his intimacy, it is known that Goebbels had many lovers throughout his life. Many women approached him to be part of the Nazi high society, that is, the group close to Hitler. In the summer of 1930, he met Johanna Maria Magdalena Ritschl, better known as Magda, at a Nazi rally where he gave a speech. She was so shocked that she joined the party as a volunteer. She became secretary to a district chief and, from this position, she began a love affair with Goebbels. She was one of the most influential women in Berlin. She had been born in 1901 into a wealthy family, and at age 19 she married a billionaire twice her age, Gunther Quandt, with whom she had her first child, Harold. However, the marriage was extremely unhappy. Magda felt trapped in a boring life, with a cold and conservative husband who did not allow her to be free. Faced with such disappointment, she had an extramarital affair with a young Jew. Gunther, enraged at her deception, divorced her and kicked her out of the house in 1929. Shortly thereafter, he met the future propaganda minister and her life changed forever. Magda Goebbels was a blind fanatic of the Führer. In fact, she is credited with the following phrase: "I adore my husband, but my love for Hitler is stronger. I would be willing to give my life for him. When it became clear to me that Hitler could not love any woman, but only Germany, I accepted the marriage with Dr. Goebbels so I could be closer to the Führer." The marriage took place in 1931, and the Nazi leader himself was the best man. In the years that followed, the couple had 6 children: Helga, Hildegard, Helmut, Holdine, Hedwig, and Heidrun. It is said that all their names began with an H in homage to Hitler. Nazi propaganda was in charge of showing the Goebbels as the perfect family, the one that all Germans should imitate. Children were photographed helping their mother with household chores, playing in the garden, singing songs to his father, and accompanying their Uncle Adolf. The government awarded Magda the German Mother's Cross of Honor, an award that made her a role model for other German women. But in reality, things were far from perfect. Goebbels cheated on his wife with a Czech actress, Lida Barova, and in 1938 they nearly divorced. They didn't do it because Hitler prevented them, since the Führer wanted to maintain the image of the ideal marriage. From this moment on, the couple was practically separated, although in public they continued to appear together at the request of the Nazi dictator. From 1942, Magda's physical and mental health worsened from nervous issues, and she reached the point where half of her face was paralyzed. The stress of the war was too much for her. When World War II reached its climax and Germany was invaded by the Allies, the Goebbels took refuge in the bunker below the Reich Chancellery. The most important Nazi officials and the Führer himself were hiding there. The 6 Goebbels children spent their days playing with Blondie, Hitler's dog, albeit frightened by the roar of artillery outside. They hadn't been told they were losing the war, though Helga, who at 12 was the oldest of them, suspected something was wrong. Finally, the dictator committed suicide with a shot to the head. Hours before, Magda had implored him not to, but to no avail. Goebbels and his wife feared the possibility of being caught by the Allies, and this is why they made an aberrant decision. They ordered the bunker's dentist to put their children to sleep with morphine injections. So that the children would not offer resistance, their parents told them that this was what German soldiers injected themselves with to be strong. Once sedated, they placed cyanide pills in their mouths and pressed down on their jaws to release the poison. The corpses were left in their rooms, on their beds, neatly dressed in white nightgowns. Shortly after, the couple went to the Chancery Garden and ingested cyanide pills. Goebbels demanded that they be shot as soon as the toxin began to take effect, to spare them the suffering. The bodies were not burned properly due to lack of fuel, so when the Soviets entered the bunker, they had no trouble recognizing the bodies. Over the following years, the remains of the Goebbels family were repeatedly buried and exhumed, until, in 1970, the Soviet Union ordered the destruction of the bodies. However, Magda's first child, the one she had with her first husband, survived World War II. Young Harold studied mechanical engineering and, after his father Gunther's death, inherited a huge fortune that made him one of the most powerful businessmen in Germany. He died in 1967, after the plane he was traveling in crashed in Italy. After this, there were no longer any living descendants of Joseph and Magda Goebbels, one of the most sinister couples in history. We have reached the end of the video. Leave us your comment below and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to learn about many more military events that left their mark on history. Thank you very much for joining us until the end. And stay tuned for our next video.